G'day, punters. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Pistol Pete, myself, Shane Ciurleo, Mark Rhoden, and a little bit later on, Josh Kadlec-Cavanagh, owner of Bravo Tango, which for Mitchie Friedman, in a very greying up experience for all of us. We were on the horse that it just got over top off late, but I helped Mitch buy it, and a bunch of my mates got in it. So after I settled down, I was happy for them. That also looks like it's half smart. Where do we want to start? Positive, false, positive equals what? And should they be telling you about it before you make betting decisions? Or should we skip that? like the rest of the industry has.
I'm happy to make some commentary on it. Zaaki tested positive to Bute or whatever it was, which is just a standard anti-inflammatory sort of product, pain-killing product, whatever you call it, that's used in every racing stable and was administered a day later than usual. I think if you're going to throw around like aspersions on social media and stuff that it equals like cheating, I'm not too keen on that sort of narrative. I was more interested in how it was probably handled, really. In, out, $7,000 fine, shush, let's roll. The game continues on. Fuck if I know.
It's confusing for me.
I
don't really care, and it's confusing. But so imagine what it's like for someone like who's got even less of gives even less fucks about the racing game.
Well, I think that's the problem.
How would you know?
You've got sort of people that don't understand the products, involved in this. They all just see positive swab, and they just attribute that to cheating. So the industry has brought that confusion on itself with the way it's reported.
Yeah, that's sort of what I'm saying.
Yeah. I've got no issue at all with that. That stuff happens, and getting a fine and playing on is exactly what should happen, and this is the right result. The narrative says that Zaaki was somehow beaten that race, and then comes out and runs 2 Australasian records in winning in Brisbane, gone like a complete jet, and somehow got beat in that Sydney race where it has returned the positive. But I think it wouldn't be the worst idea for the industry to change the narrative a little bit and sort of try and make it a little bit clearer for the average punter to understand that it didn't test necessarily positive to a performance enhancing product, because it's a product that's used in stables every day of the week. But it can enhance performance on race day, obviously. If it's not feeling pain, it'd probably run faster.
Yeah.
It is a grey one.
Yeah. That's fair. While we've got...
And sometimes performance, overdoing it on to get yourself ready to perform isn't a good thing anyway.
I think if you've got your blatant race day ones, which stomach tubing, that sometimes people get caught and get off on technicalities, and you've got if there's any systematic stuff like EPO, for example, that sort of shit, that's all stuff that's blatant. But I think when you've got things like even illicit drugs, I don't think trainers are out there jamming fucking coke up the horse's nose.
As if they'd be sharing that around.
And things like this, the one that Annabelle got done for. I mean, that's stuff that's just only shows up in swabs if it's administered in a time frame a little bit, sort of later than what it needs to be administered. Like if it's a 2-day clear and they give it, 1 3/4 days out and it comes up, well, that's just, like an issue with, it's not cheating, it's a mistake. I think something that Moods touched on that we spoke about, Moody ringing into RSN, trainers make mistakes, staff make mistakes. They give this stuff that's in a horse's regular, feed regime on a Tuesday and accidentally give it Wednesday. It's a mistake. It's not cheating. I think that's important.
Yep.
Okay.
Well said.
While we've got Mark Rhoden on the show, let's talk about Katalin, because race 8 from Rosehill there on Saturday, we have a look at the flux. It was around $2.20, $2.30 for pretty much all of the morning. Around 10:30 in the morning through to 11:30, it gradually drifted out to $3. last match price on the fair was $3.40. The race jumped at $3.45. So the drift was pretty much done by 11:30, and then it basically held or drifted a little bit more between then and jump time. Now, Mark, Rob was not impressed with the horses parade, I think it's fair to say.
No, well, when it started drifting, I love, like most of us do, I think, betting the drift, because it did look to have a fair bit on this field. I suppose the track was a bit wetter than expected, so that was a slight question mark, but that's not going to explain that dramatic drift hours before the race that you touched on. But
yeah, because to make that real clear, the information that we're talking about, the market doesn't know about until about 8 minutes out.
That's
15,
right. So
15 minutes
Rob
max.
actually, well, Rob knew I was on it. I think he backed it as well because I tipped it, but he rang. He usually rings about in 5 to 10 minutes before the race. He rang about 15 minutes before the race to say it looks absolutely shit house. It had broken out and gone to pieces after only 1.5 laps of the ring, and the signs were very, very poor indeed. I was actually, given that, surprised it didn't express right out to $4, $5, $6, which they sometimes can do. There was still money on the other side to stop it getting past about $3.50. It had got to 3 hours, a couple of hours before the race, and that was its new platform. But it got to that $3.40 range, and there was still some resistance. So there were idiots like me still wanting to back it. I didn't back it again after Rob's phone call, but there were people who obviously weren't privy to the fact that it was going to run lengths below its best that were still backing it. So whoever was pushing the price out would have got plenty out of it, I think.
And also probably worth noting too that at a similar time frame, that the 3 horses that finished in the placings were supported on the fixed odds at the same time.
Yeah. In fact, that might have been the catalyst for the
for the drift
from the bookies to push it out. If they're getting money from smart clients for multiple horses around a short price favourite, they're going to put 2 and 2 together pretty quickly. And
have you had time to run a test on J-Max drifters? We identified very clearly that J-Mac on is J-Mac's profitable as a rule.
Stop.
J-Mac on's incredibly profitable, which he capitalised on in race 1, and God bless you, that thing firmed up and pissed in. And we were playing with theirs for the majority of the day, thanks to Rhoden. I feel like when his drift, I don't want to be near it. Like, as in, bet the drift.
Yeah.
Certain setups I'm more scared of down here, and we've been spending most, let's be honest, probably 3 to 4 days a week on a Zoom together betting.
Yeah.
I'm starting to watch a lot more interstate stuff, and if we're on one of J-Max and it's drifting, I hate.
Yeah, can I just point everyone's attention to race 6 at Randwick on the Kenzo on Wednesday? The horse that we liked and we were on was Gin and Bitters, who was
that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
J-Mac has ridden 3 winners before that for Uncle Chris, maybe more at that point.
Here they cop the shaft.
And this one's half steady away under a nice grip out of the barriers and then straight to the fence, and closest to the running rail all the way up the straight.
Yeah. In
an area that we all knew and everyone knew because he'd rode to it for the previous 5 races, that was where you could not be. And it was 250 to 460.
Yes. But that...
completely...
Well, I put it this way. I think Gin and Bitters was, to be diplomatic, ridden poorly after drifting. The ride had nothing to do with Katalin's defeat. Katalin was never travelling. And everyone knew before the race it was cast.
There's $190,000 matched on Katalin. Wonder how much was matched on this thing at the Kenzo. What race was it, Curls?
Last Wednesday.
It was 55.
55,000.
I think the key difference is that the Katalin drift occurred hours before the race, whereas seemingly the bin and jitters, Gin and Bitters drifted.
Peter's been at school all morning. What? Curls and I have been roaring home Rambo and Ustays, and this has been back at school.
I have been back at school.
Yeah, shout out to the caddy.
Big thank you.
It was just, it was pure self-interest coming down the stretch. Which way was fatter? For me, it was Rambo because it was the original bet, and I'm a bit of a Rambo man.
Yeah, I was.
But Louis was still green. And earlier in the day, it was all about Bryson, who then proceeded to shit the bed, which, again, maybe just too much sort of...
I don't want to fall into that quintessential Australian tall poppy sort of guy because, Bryson's won a major and, very, very small percentage of people that pick a golf club up are ever going to get to that point. But, geez, he's easy to hate.
Mm. I like them all. They're all characters. It's like...
And watching him
it's turning into a bit more of like the WWE, and it's something that, like, racing...
Well,
how much was the US Open worth to the winner?
2.25.
I don't have a clue. If it was a racing
2.25, I looked it up this morning.
Yeah, but they don't ram it down your throat, do they?
Yeah.
No one
It's about
cares.
the sport and the contest and the characters.
A couple of things from that watching that final round. We've digressed massively here, but John Rahm's physique from his knee to his waist, I really enjoy because it gives me hope. He's got a shocking rig, eh?
He's going to be like that big, like, thick, fat, like, grandpa, isn't he?
Oh, terrible. And Bryson having an 8 on that par 4, relate, bro. He hit him sideways there at one point.
Yeah. Bryson's been good, though, for Rory. Like, he shit it. He shit the bed just as hard.
Yeah, it was great.
That element of niggle hasn't... The last element of niggle between participants I can think of in racing was when John Sadler spoke his mind in the stewards' room at Moonee Valley one day about what he thought of Wayne Hawkes.
Yeah, but like...
I'm sure there are all these people who hate each other in racing, but they rarely go public with it.
Well, the last time... There's so much like feuding and hatred in racing because it's like we said last week, it's a giant bubble bath with you don't know who's doing what, but someone's Dutch riding someone, and if you're Dutch riding the wrong person, then the other person hates that person, and it stems and flows, and in an industry, and like I have to watch a lot of it. It is some of the dullest content in sport. It is there for you on a platter. These sick, twisted individuals, if you're watching this show, if you're watching racing.com, you suffer from the sickness. If you got into training or you're betting or you ride horses, you are an even bigger sufferer of the sickness. It's all the content you could ever need and want. And all you have to do is throw a tiny bit of cash at everyone. No one loves cash more than people in the racing industry. Anyway, I'm off on a tangent again.
So just to summarise, Gin and Bitters drifted in the last half hour, whereas Katalin drifted 3-4 hours before the jump.
Yeah. It was, well and truly in the pot well before race time.
Okay, thank you for joining us, Mark Rhoden. You've got Hawkesbury tomorrow, you've got Canterbury Wednesday, Kembley Grange Thursday, then Newcastle and Royal Randwick on Saturday. So a pretty busy week for the middle of winter.
It's a big week for Mark because it's a quiet week in Victoria, which is where the most...
Yeah. Oh, all right.
He just froze. But anyway, continue, Mark.
To the best. It is a fairly solid week. The field sizes may suffer. They might be overdoing it with the calendar a bit, but anyway, we'll just play the ball as it lies, as they say. Yeah, plenty of meetings to cover anyway.
All right, beautiful. We'll catch up on Friday for a preview with Mark Sheen of the Randwick meeting. Until then, go well, and we'll get JKC on the line in a sec.
All right, all the best.
Josh Kadlec-Cavanagh, welcome to the deep dive.
How are we?
Yeah, very good. Let's talk about some Ipswich. Incentivise was the horse that most people want to talk about. It's a little bit difficult trying to line it up at Ipswich because there really hasn't been any 2,500 metre races at Ipswich. There's been one, apparently.
One other.
Could you articulate, Josh, like what that means and how it's therefore hard to measure?
Probably pretty hard for, I don't know, the ins and outs of punting form, but it's pretty hard to get a gauge on par times if there's only one sample of a track and distance run before. Same thing happened, I think, a couple of weeks ago. You'd be able to confirm, Curly, with the Doomben Cup going back to the 3,200 distance. Same thing happened not many 3,200 races at was that at Doomben, wasn't it? So yeah, it's hard to gauge. You can try to do things where you work out how fast that they run a furlong in, but you're never going to get a good gauge. It's to having a look at sort of the population of how averages pan out. So yeah, it's tricky to assess, but it'd be interesting to see because Incentivise numbers last in the prior start were huge on the punting form data.
Yeah. So what you'll see if you're using the sectional pro form is that there is no adjusted variables. There's no benchmarking that's occurred because there's not enough of a sample size to do so.
Which I think sets up really well for the future of this horse because they paid like $1 million for it. We backed it and it couldn't run top 3 in a Toowoomba maiden. It's gapped probably what looks like absolutely nothing here at Ipswich. So no one knows. And it's going to come to Melbourne or somewhere and it's just going to be like, what do we do here? It's going to be people measuring the margins to come up with numbers. And we'll probably just no bet the race or try and lay it depending.
There's two things that I'm comfortable enough in saying coming out of this meeting. It would have won the Ipswich Cup. So you can use that as a guide if you'd like. And what was the Flemington winner on Saturday in the staying race? The
Greys.
The Greys.
So
Degrassi. No, Degrassi High. The Graves. So there's nuts. So whatever Incentivise beat wouldn't have got within 10 lengths of the Graves on Saturday either at Flemington.
They wouldn't have got within 10 lengths of what it beat. Wouldn't have got within 10 lengths of whatever won like the staying race at Sandown on Wednesday.
Likely.
Yeah. Can you talk us a bit about the staying ranks of Queensland racing, Kelly?
And how it feels to have a horse that's been
it's
purchased
just
for $1
that's a genuine question.
that you backed heavily at Toowoomba and it couldn't run top 3.
And sorry, also shouldn't we mention here that these are provincial stayers, aren't they?
This is so this field was made up of horses that competed in a provincial stayers series heats. Around the benchmark 70 grade. So you got like benchmark 65 and 70 horses running around in heats, and then they have the final. The final is open for other horses to enter. So you had horses like Tavion Prince, who has won a Saturday race. But the depth of the Saturday staying talent was evident in the Ipswich Cup, where we had Happy Go Plucky win, who doesn't win. But he only had So You Win chasing him, who also doesn't win. Another horse that wins 1 in every 10. Like, they were complete nonnies battling it out in the Ipswich Cup. And that's the Queensland staying ranks week in, week out.
Yeah, like that Tavion Prince, which you've referenced, has had an enormous amount of attempts and has broken the all-average benchmark twice in its career with a 1 and a 1.8. So for reference, I'll quickly talk like Flemington. So the average, like a good Flemington run's going to be a figure of 10.
So Incentivise can measure up to a standard Flemington run.
Yeah, so with Curly's 10 length thing, then that's about 10. Yeah.
It's also a Seamus Award gelding out of a Iglesia dam, so it doesn't exactly scream stayer, does it?
Well, Cox Plate.
Yeah, that's not a staying distance, 2,000 metres. Like if they're talking about Caulfield Cup or something like that.
It's an Australian stayer, though.
I think he's favourite for them. I think he's like... I just hate saying these words out of my own fucking mouth, but he's favourite in the pre-post markets, right?
For what?
For the Caulfield Cup.
This horse?
Yeah.
No. It's definitely it's definitely not. Nah.
He's like $10 or something. Didn't Tab or someone tweet like he's into $10 for the cup or some bullshit?
Mate, he shouldn't be paid for
I'll
the
get a check for you.
Cup.
It's
I've got it now.
$26 out there for the Caulfield Cup.
Okay, so regardless of what price he is,
$51.
So what I was going to say was whatever price he is to win those races, he should be to get a run in those races.
Yeah.
He's not even got a
Like,
run.
he'll be flat out getting a run in a Caulfield Cup or a Melbourne Cup.
Mate, I reckon he's going to SP about 20s in a Cranbourne Cup or something.
Anyway, great narrative, great for racing, great story.
We've wasted too
Back
much
to
time
Toowoomba.
talking about it.
You're back to the Toowoomba, you lost. What happened? How? Well, how is this possible?
Yep. And then I didn't back at the start after when it won at 20s, but we did get something out of it its subsequent start when it did win. Now, it goes from Steve Tregay to Peter Moody. Like, there's some expectation that Moody's going to improve it. So, we'll see. Congratulations to Steve Tregay. He's the real winner here. He keeps half the horse and sold it at a value of 1.2.
So he just paid off the house. Good on him.
Is
That's the same bloke that sold Command and Conquer to Hong Kong.
Yeah, which won first start in Hong Kong for David Hayes. It won really well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he sold 2 horses for 1.2 in the last 8 months or so. So he's going on. Well done to him. That's the story.
Not no longer.
Bray's brought it. I mean, Bray's got unlimited. If Bray wants to buy a horse out of this Ipswich Cup meeting, he wants to go and have a look at the Ipswich Cup and buy the 3rd horse.
Ooh.
This is the only other horse. There's 2 horses that interest me out of the meeting apart from Incentivise. One was Desert Lord from the all-conquering David Van Dyke stable. God,
50% at Ipswich, isn't it?
Yeah, something like 24 winners from his last 48 runners last 12 months at Ipswich. DVD.
Crazy country out there, Costa, DVD.
Yep, we'll just I'd take that question on notice, Jack, regarding the Costa stable. And well done to our marketing intern who tweeted about Costa, who has then settled up 6 subsequent runners and hasn't run a place.
Regression to the mean.
Desert Lord, before we touch on the Ipswich Cup, mentioned Desert Lord. It actually was the only horse to break 11 seconds for its last furlong, like trotting in too, by the way.
He didn't touch it.
he got home in a slick 10.84 on the puntingform.com.au sectional times there. I'm not sure whether this is a fresh horse. This horse has got some big figures fresh. He's going to the Glasshouse Handicap on his home track at the Sunny Coast in a fortnight's time, over 1,400. So, we'll likely follow him again if he's black odds because he was ultra impressive and thankfully people were still happy to lay him at 240-ish on the fair. It was delightful. So well done me for finding the obvious horse on the day. Good on me. This Ipswich Cup, dead set. So you win, loomed up to win like he always does and didn't. I thought the run of the race was Flash R. Now, this is a horse that I spoke about in the preview show as a horse that I was a little bit interested in backing on at the each way price. This is his prep. Dumped the rider first up at Doomben back on start of March, right, over 1,200. Went back to the trials, got his ticket back. Won a listed race on a heavy at 1,400. So that's basically on resumption. 35 days off, went back to 1,000, ran 4th, back up to 1,350, ran 10th, month off, back to 1,000, pissed in, back up to 1,500, ran 4th behind Ciurleo's, that horse of Charlie's, and then straight up to 2,150 and runs 3rd, beaten half a length. Now, this horse is trained by Mitchell Fry. No knock on Mitchell, but you haven't heard of him. If Bray wants to throw a couple of $1 million around buying Queensland stays, he might as well add this one to the collection, I reckon. This horse has got a decent race in it in Queensland. But I don't know, maybe with the gaps between runs and stuff, maybe it's got a few little issues. But I thought it was the run of the race in the Ippy Cup, and one of sort of 3 horses that I'd be interested in following out of the meeting. The rest I could not care if they never race again.
Okay. Well, speaking of horses you don't care about, girls, there was also a meeting at Gympie on Saturday, and Josh, there was a market mover of the day at Gympie.
Yeah, it looks like, looking at some of the data that I collect, it was the number 1 mover of the day, Tactical Manoeuvre, race 6, number 6, $8 they bet at 9 a.m. into $3.10. And the punters, they just can't eat overs. came second. Of course.
So it wasn't like, was it Rockhampton where the thing they back just went to the front, left alone, and just kept going?
No.
Yeah, we saw it. Saw a couple of those, and then we saw one at Darwin that got beat by Shataka of the Tar.
We were on that, weren't we?
It was a sick beat for the data
That was
bettors.
my fault. Was it or you? One of us crowed that.
You.
Yeah, it's me.
Yep.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to go watch some lovely Tar racing, go pull up the replay of Darwin race 1 and just watch how far it's got. You know, it's got Incentivise lengths at the 200. It's about 5 in front.
I think entitled to crow there.
Yeah, this thing just jumps out of the ground, eats up the Tar.
Just on Gympie, it was its first tab meeting forever, same as what Nanango was 2 weeks ago. And same as Nanango, I hope it's their last.
How do we think that they prepared the track for the big day?
Well, it's pretty clear at Gympie. I've done the lanes data for punting form. They actually had the heavy roller. They've got it off the cricket pitch and they rolled 4 wide at Gympie at just that one lane.
Yeah.
Just for the locals.
Imagine pushing the heavy roller through that sandpit like for 2 Ks.
Sight to behold. Anyway, I mean, that's good for racing in Queensland. It's great. It's a great narrative. Right under the club. Looking forward to the Bundaberg Cup meeting being a tab meeting coming up.
Okay, stay tuned for that. I'm not sure if that was serious or a joke, but we'll stay tuned for that, girls.
How would you know, Peter?
I just don't know. I'm not paying attention anyway.
If I said to you this time last week, hey, we're going to be watching a heap of Gympie on Saturday, you would have been like, what's Gympie? And it would have been like, it's an actual town in Queensland. They race there.
The Gympie sleeping.
It's a nice town. I've been.
Josh is also like a Queenslander, really, aren't you?
Oh, step through. No, I just spent a little bit of time in Queensland for a few years, and Gympie.
I'm not bagging the place. Just a lot of people wouldn't have heard of it.
I should also mention Gympie has had the biggest market mover and also the biggest market drifter on the day, which is
what the drifter
race 4, number 8, Spirits First, Unwanted.
Lost the rider
at 9 a.m. It was $2 out to $6. Finishes 8. So they just know you can somewhat say that they know at Gympie.
That's where the big punters get involved. Speaking of some betting moves, I have to touch on 2 of the runners that I backed, which both finished unplaced. But it was interesting to note that someone was laying a few horses in WA over the last couple of days for significant amounts of cash late on the fair. Moshard in race 9 at Belmont, there was roughly 60k or a liability of 60k there in the last minute or so at around $16. He could take 5,000 if he wanted. 4.5, I think it was. It started at 15, went all the way out to 17. And then again in the last at Kalgoorlie yesterday, Qd WA was being stood for $40,000 by one punter out there. Now, obviously, a lot of this isn't being matched, but I wonder if we've got a person or syndicate entertaining a few of these map bets, or if it's just some random who's doing it for fun. I don't know. I'd sort of throw it out there.
What does it do to your mental health betting wise when you see that?
Well, usually I'm happy to bet the drift when there's that amount of cash on, and they're both horses based out of Kalgoorlie. I tend to take notice of that.
If you're not quivering, you are like, we all think that Peter's easily the sickest, cybonic person on our team, but you are beyond what we believe how sick that you are. If you're not quivering when you see 40k there.
Well, in both cases, I actually started backing the other horse that I had backed in the race for more, and luckily in the case of Kalgoorlie, the other horse won. That did not happen in the last at Belmont because the horse that we backed was leading and was given a Valium. But anyway, I just want to throw it out there. If you're noticing anything funky happening on the fair, particularly in WA for my interest, screenshot it, send it through. I might not notice everything. I just think it's worth pointing out, and I add it to the comments in your punting form notes.
Pistol, I sent one to you yesterday. I backed a winner at Kalgoorlie.
Hip
Anyway.
wiggle it was, not head wiggle.
Head wiggle. Was it called head wiggle or hip wiggle? Anyway,
It's hip, but
Just fell in.
so I've it has a tendency to do that. So I've backed it pre-off, and then and then I put a $300. I laid it. Wanted to lay it for 300. Put 300 in $1.12. Hit the front at the 200 and won, and never got matched.
And won by what? It won by a
You were taking $1.12.
I think it's Western Australian gambling is a disgrace. How there's no minimum bet laws, which is purely serves their own self-interest. I do not understand it, but because there's not, a lot of people don't watch it.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Would that be the most likely cause there, Peter?
Oh, look, it has to be, because the reduction in Betfair's commission has made no difference from what I can tell. It'd be interesting to note if Betfair's actually, if any of the guys there are actually noticing any significant changes since they've dropped the commission rate by a couple of %. But clearly the fact that you can't get on for any significant amounts of cash until basically the last 3 minutes of betting on most races is what's causing a distinct lack of wagering interest in the sport.
It's utterly it's not disgrace. It's all these words, but it's very, very dumb on their behalf. So if Curly sends something early or Rhoden does, we might be restricted. We might not be able to get a bet on, but you can get someone else to get a bet on.
Or you can get the limit anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
no, like a day early, say.
Not till July 1. Yeah, early. Yeah.
If you're about to come and join us in the future. Yeah. And then surely Racing New South Wales will not be far behind. So then any time a price goes up in the 3 major states in Australia, I can bet in my own name with confidence and not stressed about actually just getting the thing on. In Western Australia, they could knock me back like they're knocking me back on a Friday night to back a horse on Saturday. They could knock me back 2 minutes before the race jumped.
Yeah.
Mm.
So if I am able to be, there's a chance that my bet's going to be rejected 2 minutes before the off. Why would I waste my time studying the form and figuring out what I want to back?
What a great segue to let Jack go off about Roa. What's the name of the organisation, Jack, that runs racing over there?
Roa.
It must also be noted that obviously they were trying to sell the WA TAB there for a few years, and that obviously came off the table. So there was, I guess, I wouldn't call it an excuse. There was a reason for there not being any MBLs being introduced for a couple of years, because obviously there was some prospective buyers and it wasn't really their concern. Well, that's off the table. It's been off the table. When was it? At the end of 2019? Was it? I can't remember what year it was.
We've spoken about this for years, you and I, and
it's been going for years.
There was a reason, sort of thing, and so the only way we handle it, or I don't do anything other than whatever Pete says, but 98% of his business is very late, and you just bet what you can on Betfair, and you got to be quick because he moves it. Anyone else with ability there moves it because there's not much there compared to other markets, and then you just sort of, I just don't get it. It's like it'll help them the most.
Yeah. Well, there is a paper in the State Library from 2007, 2008 regarding the turnover of money through the TAB in WA, and it recommended cutting taxes to punters to try and stimulate growth and turnover in the state. That's 15 years ago. Nothing was done about it. It's wonderful, but it's still in the State Library collecting dust. And I was both nerdy and bored enough to actually read through it. And I might do it again.
I'm convinced that the MBLs are having a really positive impact in the Victorian betting market. It'd be really interesting to see what the numbers come out at. But like anyone else like me who's sick enough or has to watch the markets, look, they move so much now.
It adds such a dynamic aspect to it. There's just another time point in the betting, it feels like now.
Well, the deep dive audience would like shrink, but it'd be really, really like converted sickos like us. We could just sit here and talk for an hour and a half about each race at Flemington and start with the betting moves, and that'd be 5 or 7 minutes of content. Like, well, it started like this, then they came for this thing, then that thing drifted. heaps of big goes miss, heaps of big go. Like it's just fascinating.
Yeah. They were bang on Saturday though. A couple should mention with interesting drift on Kurabui, which was sort of unwanted.
I don't know if that was a
after
drift. I thought about this.
I think it was getting
might
back
have
to
been the firmer for the good horse.
Yeah, I think. Well, that was actually funny enough. That was probably the biggest firmer at a metro, or close to the biggest firmer at a metro track on Saturday. It was $7.50 into $4, and yeah, they knew whether or not that was just purely the the import horse for starter sort of stuff, or people actually knew. It was interesting, and Kurabui no doubt had to jump up in grade, and it did well, I thought, considering it was cast. But that could have been a map.
Josh is being humble. We spoke before the day started, and he had all these reasons why Kurabui might be soft and is half a risk, and you were right. I thought the ride by Will Price was very, very good on a big stage for a big stable. If you're a jockey, he nailed it, and they nailed it. Like how I don't know how they do it, but I'm never going to be able to find that horse at this point in my life. I couldn't see a trial of like anything to firm a big view off, and I don't have the sort of data, whatever they're using. They nail. And I said this to you before it started. If there's money for this horse, it's just not going to be a bet race, because more often than not, if the market steams import first up at Bendigo, Flemington, in a Cox Plate, they are right.
The Cox Plate especially, we've seen that a couple of times.
Well, even when they're wrong, they're right. Like Anthony Van Dyke.
Yeah.
Caulfield Cup. That was a complete steamer, and if Hugh Bowman didn't go via the Caulfield station and swap his Marquee card, it would have pissed him.
I think we should also mention this. De Graves actually has a import that went up to Curly Country, Delphi form, finished fourth behind it in an Irish race at Leopardstown last year. So that'll be interesting to follow where the Delphi goes next.
Did it have Armoury form?
Yeah, it did have the Armoury form as well. So there's links tied there.
Delphi was the one that came up here that was a front-running stayer and sat three deep on a walking tempo.
Absolute joke.
It was a disgusting ride.
How good do you think De Graves is, Josh?
It's untapped.
When you look at the data, it's pretty strong, like solid.
It's got the Super Sire Camelot, which we love. They're flying. Don't know what the data exactly is on it, but it's no doubt going to be definitely, yeah. I don't know what the plan is, but I guess cups are on the cards. But yeah, like Curly was saying, if you're getting, I don't know what you're getting what price you're getting with De Graves, but if Incentivise and De Graves are close in price, it's a bit of a joke, because you'd assume that that's got much of a leg up on it.
There's no way that they'll ever be near the same price or anything.
Funnily enough, De Graves is 100 to 1 for the Cup, and Incentivise 51. And
in the Caulfield Cup, De Graves is $34, Incentivise is 20 to 1, and on the fourth line of betting behind Mount Popper, Al Arsi, and Explosive Jack.
So yeah, there's some angles there for sure.
Definitely some angles. Speaking of futures markets, shall we segue into some Q&A? Because, Curly, the fucking Everest talk has started. Would you consider a futures package on the service? Quote unquote.
Did I write that?
Yep.
I did too.
Hey, like he's saying, did he write it in, Peter?
Yep.
Yeah, I sent that viewer question in. I actually put it under an alias. It wasn't actually me. It was Curlier West.
Curlier West or East. Yeah.
I am off my fucking head here. Futures. Look, I tried a futures bet this year. I backed Ranch Hand in the JJ. Still fucking running. Still coming. Hasn't fucking weighed in yet. Look, to be honest, I'm that tied up in the day-to-day of the grind of the quality of horses that I've got to deal with in Queensland. It's not often I see one that I can recommend for a futures bet. So I can't help. But I know that in the conversations that we've had, that you blokes who see these southern horses, southern state horses, good horses. And I think you had a bit of success with Ole Kirk, maybe, or something. Was that one that you found early that won a couple of nice races?
Yeah, Pathways
we
and
had
the Crystal
success,
Ball.
but the success was driven by Peter and I had to do a show for Betfair, which is ridiculous because they never put any money into their markets. Like, they put 50,000 over a bar, but they wouldn't put 50,000 into a market they were trying to promote. They put 5,000 in. But we had to do the work, so we started to do the work, and then you started to see angles, and then you start to research. But it is research, and it's different types of research to normal. You're then trying to source information from people, like, is this where you're trying to go with this horse? Blah blah blah.
And what about the impact of the nuclear radiation testing that famous overseas trainer Aidan O'Brien, I think his name is, mentioned about not bringing out horses here because they have to go through a fucking nuclear scan to see if their bones are strong enough. Does that throw a complete different angle into the Caulfield Melbourne Cup?
I think it makes them so much more exciting as betting propositions and races that we can really work on and figure out and bet into, and then potentially there'll be more turnover for the industry. I don't know.
Better take the $21 Incentivise now than.
Yeah, or if it's just like normal, just wait and see which international they steam late and just jump on.
Yeah.
Like, if you just did no form, didn't listen to any of the narrative, and just said, oh, shit, it's Van Dyke time in the Caulfield Cup, and you steamed into that, you just missed, probably should have won. You steamed into Sir Dragonet and the Cox Plate, you're so far in front, it's not funny. You still haven't done any form, and you've only watched horses for 3.5 minutes.
Don't forget
and then in the
Lizzie
Melbourne
G.
Cup, you just said, oh, shit, it's Tiger Moth time. You put half of your profit into that horse, and you thought you were going to win the whole way, and you just missed. So you've had 3 huge bets for no work, and you've looked like you're going to win every single time. So you've had a great ride.
Oh, geez, I wish I probably should have done that for the Ipswich Cup instead of listening to the narrative from Peter Moody and Trent Busserton, who both gave their horses good pushes and ran 10th of 12 and 12th of 12 respectively.
Oh, I remember Busserton's Warrnambool one.
Anyway, so I'm not doing futures, but you blokes can. That'd be great. I'll just follow you. Thank you.
Okay, very good.
Thank you for your question.
From Phil, he's got 2 questions.
Filthy.
How do you rate horses racing second up in general? I often find it the hardest part of punting. You can be so wrong when pricing your own markets with horses second up. All right, Dickens, I'll start with you. Do you have any second up theories? Anything you look for?
Josh should probably speak to this deeper, and Rhoden would go on about this too.
Yep.
Be careful if they come out of a big tempo race or they run a peak first up. Watch for patterns with the stables, and anticipate. I don't want to sound too sort of rude here, but sometimes I think they're so dumb that even if the horse is ready to fire second up, but it's drawn barrier 12, they'll ride it cold, even though the horse was there. The horse doesn't know it's not trying, but they're not, and then they'll try and win third up. So I think if you're aiming at finding horses that are first, second, third up, it's a good starting point. First up's tricky. You need to do a lot of work with your trials, which in Victoria is almost impossible. It costs a lot of money to set yourself up to even be able to watch them, which is now in jeopardy. But I believe that they're going to do the right thing because there's good people in there at .com who understand it and are working at it. But it is still a joke, and how hard it is to watch trials. So I think starting in Victoria, if you are in Victoria, second, third ups you go.
Josh, your thoughts on second up?
I agree with Filthy Phil's question. It's tricky, very tricky to assess. They come off a fast run. You want to see that happen though, because it brings on their fitness a lot with the, that fast pace run. But you also got to be careful if they're going to be flat, if they run a peak. If it's just a fast paced race and they've, just finished, battled on fine and not run some enormous figure and have, 2-3 weeks between runs, yeah, sweet. But yeah, it's all to do with, is it the right, it's a lot of things for me, right distance. Is there a jockey change, things like that, right track conditions on the day. and what sort of placement they're in, if they're in, handicap race, how well they're in, set weights, etc. There's certain trainers also look at horse preferential. Have they won in the past, second up? Horse that just comes to mind is it wasn't second up on Saturday, but Think and Fly. It ran super, and it had a good second up figure last prep up to the mile, so it was the 14 to 1600. That's what you want to see. It's just like don't force them second up, or just don't force them ever, but don't force them second up. It's got to have the right setup. This horse was also a track and distance horse. It had run its peak before at Flemington the mile, run negative 10.9 from memory there at negative 10.1. In fairness, it had the graves to put, make it run that figure again. But it is that second up horse, like Zico said, had the goat on, was a super ride. And, it ran its peak number in that second up. So you want to find those horses that love, second up or second or third up sometimes.
To get a little bit deeper, like with what Josh is saying, if Think and Fly was second up and stayed at 1400, Josh should go, well, I'm not sure if it's ready yet. They might have been saying like a setback. So he's looking for that second up profile, but out to what it's already shown over his career is his preferred trip, And then you might see other stables where it's like Will Price, Ben Mellon third up. Well, that's the trainer saying, I'm trying. I think my horse is his best chance of winning this prep is today. I'm always trying. They're always trying.
And I always, just to add to the commentary on second up horses, I really still like the Lambourne Pearl of first up winners are potent. It's very simple, but especially if they go from provincial into metro or go up in grade or something like that.
Yeah, I think there is something in this, right? You'll hear information all the time like it's hard to go from winning a maiden. It's hard to go into town. When you hear stuff like that, it's often from a complete nonny, and almost definitely from a losing punter. It's a great opportunity that.
Mm.
If the collective is saying something that just like, why is it harder? Because you've won one from two starts in your life, or you've won one from one, and now I'm going to penalise you because you're going up in grade. Versus these horses that have had 16 or 17 or 8 opportunities. Like, don't just list, like when the crowd's saying something in racing, it's often smart to think of, hang on, can I go the other way here because I'm going to get a better price.
Yeah.
Couple of things in Queensland, because that's where I look. I don't think a lot of people say, it's hard to win next start after winning a maiden. Stat shows that maidens 2 or 1 are very winnable, where maiden to a benchmark race is harder. And also might have something to do with training ability here, but horses that are second up after running well off 200 plus days off is always one that I look a lot deeper into, because they can dash well fresh and then have that, that, especially after a long spell. So I'm talking, like closer to 12 months, a lot more than 200 days, where they can dash well fresh and then, sort of regress a little bit or don't improve second up.
Okay. I like it. Phil's...
Should just mention a quick one there. There was actually, I just managed to crunch some data whilst we were talking about that point. And there was actually three runners at Ipswich on Saturday who were second up, who all had, I believe, a second up win. And they were race 4 at Wits End, race 8 Snitch, and race 9 Lillymore. So if you're going off that profile, they are all, won at nice odds, especially at Wits End. So yeah, that's probably one to look out for.
Was Lillymore the thing that Willow was against, that he sort of had a little sit on? Oh, Chomper's got a bit tired.
There was also, that wouldn't have been the only 3 that raced there that were second up.
Second up that had one second up previously.
Yeah.
And one on Saturday. There was a decent sample of them, but they were the ones that actually won. So, they had a nice profile.
Okay. There was a second part to Phil's. Well, it was a different question, but he had a second question. What are your 2 to 3 main factors on the day that will make you change your punting market? He said, every time I change my market, I get it wrong, so I prefer to stick to my prices once I'm on course. So are there any factors that might arise that will cause you to change your rated prices during the day?
Suppose track and weather's the obvious.
Who do you want to start? Well, who's going? You go first, Shane.
Track, well, weather, I suppose, because of what the weather will impact the track. So
That's the same thing.
I think it's the same thing. Well, not. I suppose not. I suppose weather, number one, and then track. But
to change
that's
your
not
price.
always. But that. Yeah, so weather affects the track, which changes the price. So this thing's going to lead the fence, and it's got a 3 kilo apprentice on who knows nothing but lead the fence with this horse, and the fence is inferior 3 lengths. And I'm going to back that apprentice to stay on the fence and lose 3 lengths.
I think that there's not 3 factors. There's 1.5. It's like exactly what Shane's spoken about. I just call that the pattern. The pattern can be influenced by anything. Like lots of things, not just weather, but mainly weather, rain or wind, and just stinky market moves one way or the other, like the other half, the other one. And they won't so much affect my price. So I had no idea about De Grey's on Saturday, so I just made it about $7. It was $7.50 9 a.m. I made it $7 just to be just under. But I'm not then going to make it the market again when it hemorrhages. I'm just going to turn that race off essentially.
Okay. Josh, anything for yourself?
Yeah, I try to play with track. I try to keep a quantified approach, and I haven't got to the level that I want to with that sort of stuff during the day. But I would love to see some sort of track pattern figures come into my work. I do think of it. I do just put in the subjective stuff at the moment and just overlay the map and how the track's been playing on the day. Especially if it plays different to how that track usually plays. More so, it's just playing out of pattern for that track. That's more so for me. If I'm at the valley and it's playing leaderish, I'm not gonna amplify those numbers because I think that's double dipping on what's already encompassed in my numbers in the track.
Yeah.
But if you could quantify that it's more leaderish than the Moonee Valley is leaderish, then yeah, for sure. You could take another length or 2 off back markers and just completely pen them. You'll probably be falling in line with the market before the market gets there too. So, it's all about beating SP at the end of the day to get your edge.
Yeah. I tend to not change my prices at all once they're locked in, unless, as Josh pointed out, there's a change to what I expect will happen track-wise, which doesn't happen very often in Perth. Or if there's a significant change in the mounting yard from last start to this start. They're the only 2 times I'll change something.
I should have said. I thought he was just saying the mounting yard's part of our price.
Yeah, but I'm not changing my price if something parades a little bit better. Like I'm only changing my price on the day if something's a distinct change from last start. Because typically I expect, most of the time, say we saw it there at Belmont on Saturday, the narrative was that it was on speed. It wasn't on speed. Like, it actually played very fair. But because that narrative was coming through, I'm not going to change anything in my prices because the market, the media, the people on course, the trainers and jockeys have already done that for me.
Yeah.
So it's just a waste of my time because I'm just following trends that other people have already seen, which I basically view as being irrelevant.
Yeah, I really want to avoid backing horses that are going to be in positions that are not winning ones throughout that day. So I try to manipulate the prices through the map scores, like lengths.
Yeah.
But if I still land on the horse that I just think's not suited, it's then just going to be about that edge. So we spoke about last week or on the previous show about. I sort of like to have just a little bit more than 5% to pull the trigger on a bet. that's going to then need to be sort of like a 10 to 15%. So like we had Livingston Falls yesterday at Bendigo. I had it like $1.40. So if it was mad leaders, I still would have taken $1.80.
Yeah.
And if he had followed Just Folk, he probably would have won. So, like, who cares? Like,
yeah.
It doesn't mean like you don't back them, but you need to have a really like thought out. And the reason you need to, I think, is because they're going to lose. You're going to lose more than you win. Just need to win more than you lose cash-wise. But you're going to lose more. Like, outcomes are going to go against you a lot. So you just need to have sound thinking and reason to handle the head noirs that follows the defeats.
Yeah.
Which is like, I didn't watch Livingston Falls live. I was having a kick with my son. And I just text you boys, didn't I? Say, like, did he fuck it? Because I was worried he might fuck it. Only because of the map. Head noirs.
Head noirs.
It's very good. Okay.
Awesome. Cover the golf again, Peter?
Yeah, once more, just for those who missed it. If you tuned in late, if you're late to the broadcast, if you decide to skip ahead using the little numbers that I provide, I spend 20 minutes of my time putting in those timestamps so you people can skip over shit you don't want to listen to. You should all be thanking me, really. Anyway, the irony, of course, is that everyone's already turned off by this point, so they can't hear me complaining about the stuff they've already turned off about.
The cyborg.
Ugh. Week ahead, what have we got? There's 10 races at Belmont there on Wednesday, and apparently, typical classic Perth, the media has pointed out it's the wettest day on Sunday that they've ever had or some shit like that. So it's going to be 10 races on a wet track at Belmont. Can't wait to drive my head through a plain glass window. Anyway, what have you guys got?
Lucy?
Well, I'm telling you, I'm going to make sure you get a message to Pikey too before Wednesday because
I didn't mention the Ride an Excellent Dream, but holy shit! I mean, there was a change of tactics for 2 horses in that race to go forward and try and lead, and none of them settled in the first 3 and run.
Talk about a small sample size, and still rides better than most professional jockeys. He's only striking at 16% this month.
He's been very much below par since he returned
Wake
to WA.
Up, Pikey.
Lift.
He's lost all ability to lead as well. Any ability he picked up to lead on horses over here, I don't know if he was just riding better stock or bigger fields, so he was just riding at a more natural tempo.
The thing that scares me here is he's starting to justify a little bit of Jack's critique.
You're bagging him, and now I'm getting thrown under again.
I'll lift your game. Like, if you're not striking above 20% every week, Pikey, like, everyone backs you at fucking Perth, lift.
The country waits on you. The country of WA.
Nothing annoys me worse than when we're on one of pistols and Pikey knocks us off because I don't back him.
Have you coached one of your sons or daughters like sports teams?
No, I refuse. I can't.
I'd love to hear your 3/4 talk. Yeah, just fucking into it. Fucking.
Anyway, that's
he
just
bashed you the Adelaide anyway.
I will not be having any bets at Belmont on Wednesday unless Pistol sends one in the last, which I will be fucking doubling down on. Again, yesterday at Kalgoorlie, in the last, Pistol produces a winner at some ridiculous price top tote of $8.20 or some bullshit.
Like, it was $5.30 the fare.
And meanwhile, fucking Jay Dickens, speaking of fucking bubble baths and bathwater, missed the bet because he was bathing his daughter.
In a bubble bath. Yeah, there was no Dutch ruddering though. But,
Queensland this week.
Can we just? I just want to get some clarity on the parenting advice from Ciurleo.
Yep.
You're dealing with something that I know you're not comfortable with. How do you do it, and how do you handle it as a parent?
What?
The bum bag.
Oh, my youngest son's half Eshe. He's got a bum bag.
Oh, fair shade.
It's
a little bit of it's okay. He's just going through a stage. He'll grow out of it. He'll grow out.
Have you got a bum bag too, though?
No, but bum bags for that age group, like he's 10, that sort of age group, like that's
big
like a trend. Hey?
He's big.
Yeah, he's going to be a unit, I think. Anyway. I'm lost.
Take the bum bag off and just swing it at you when you...
No, he's right. He's okay. He'll be right. It's just a little thing they go through. These little fads that these kids go through. Like their YouTube idols wears a bum bag, so they wear a bum bag. It'll blow over. I hope. I'm betting at Doomben Wednesday. By the way,
Sorry.
I'm continuing to test the data in northern New South Wales. So Lismore's tomorrow, but won't be sending any bets. Continuing to crunching the data in North Queensland and Central Queensland because there's a little bit of a whisper going around that a few baggies, male baggers, people
Could
from
be
the male
Adelaide's.
are going to Rockhampton Cup on July 9 and 10. So stay tuned.
Wow.
So there's Townsville and Rockhampton Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday I'll be reporting live from Gatton for the Gatton Cup.
Wow.
At the same time, we have Eagle Farm, the final Group 1 of the fucking season. And thankfully for all the breeders out there, their last opportunity to get black type with the Group 1 Tats Tiara for fillies and mares. So good luck to everyone trying to get that black type. There's also racing from the Gold Coast on Saturday as well. So we've got a busy Saturday. Very busy
Is there
Saturday.
any third tier meets in Queensland this week on the Saturday? No Gympie, no Nanango.
Well, there is Roma, Mariba, Mount Isa, Gladstone,
Mate,
and
he's
Alpha.
all over it. On the Zoom, he's like, hey, Knackers, get over to that course, would you? Just have 4 of you. And then when you're done there, yeah, you can have a little bit of it. Yeah, Knackers. Like, it's just Queensland at its prime. He's betting on everything and everywhere. And now that...
I did have a bet at the non-tabs at Warwick on Saturday, yes.
Speaking of betting everywhere and everything, I missed Cam Dean's unders in the GWS game at like the 160 or whatever. But I noticed the overs at 142 because it was 2 unit, which is a huge bet for him. So I triple pressed it. God bless him. God bless the AFL.
Oh,
Very quiet week in Victoria. Have I done that already?
No, you haven't, but you've got Pakenham, Cranbourne, Moe, Ballarat.
There's no betting at Wangaratta. Did the prices. It's yuck. Maybe one at Pakenham. There's a horse we backed, which few have asked about, but there's also a sneaky, like a really nice trialer in there for an A-grade rider. Same race. Tricky.
Wowee.
Cranbourne, we'll be betting, and if they let us on track, you get mounting up mail. And then Caulfield Saturday, but it's like we spent 75 units this week. I suspect we're going to spend about 35 this week to 40.
Wonderful. That's been the deep dive. Thank you, Josh, for joining.
Luckily, we got these rundowns going, eh? 2 weeks into the rundown, that's probably the most unorganised dribble set we've had. Fuck.
Bye for now.
Bye, Packers.